Why is it that African Americans particularly are left out of American history?
Well, I think that the answer to that question of why African Americans are left out of American history fits in a bigger scheme of what happens in education. In education, there has been in the last 50 years a real movement to just get God out of history books. We just leave him out. Well, as you look at elements where God has worked, even current polling today, and has for a number of years, shows that the most Christian community in America is the African American community. Higher percent of African Americans are Christians than any other group. So if you're going to talk about African American heroes, by and large, you're going to have to talk about some Christians, and since we don't talk about Christians in textbooks, African Americans really receive the brunt of that. It's pretty difficult to find many African American heroes that were not Christians. And so what happens now, and there's been another tendency in our textbooks. Tendency in our textbooks is when we show heroes, we like to show either victims or angry people.
Right.
We want to show people that were fighting the injustices of the system, that wicked government. We're going to show people who fought it, or we're going to show people who were victimized in some way. And there are plenty of those out there. But there's tons of inspirational stories. That the Absalom Jones and the Richard Allens, and this is another great example. This right here is a document, original document signed by a judge. This is signed in 1814 by a judge named Wentworth Cheswell. And Wentworth Cheswell was a black judge in America in 1814. And by the way, he was elected to office in 1775 in New Hampshire. So here's a judge who's been elected to office for 40 years who's black American. We never hear about African Americans getting elected to office. We thought all that started with Barbara Jordan, Andrew Young back in the 70s. No. African Americans elected to office back in 1775, like Wentworth Cheswell. And interestingly, we don't know about this guy, but he's the guy who lined up with Paul Revere. And when Paul Revere went on his ride, Wentworth Cheswell went on his ride as well. Black and white going to warn Americans the British are coming. So we hear part of the story. We don't hear about Wentworth Cheswell.